It's been one of those weeks where two things happened at the same time. The college football playoff took center stage, and underneath it, the coaching carousel started humming again. When that happens, timelines get loud, speculation gets confident, and the truth usually moves a little quieter. So today, we're stepping back. This isn't about hot takes. It's about perspective. What actually happened this week, what didn't, and why the playoff matters to all of it more than most people realize. You're listening to Agent Confidential. I'm Faux Jimmy Sexton. Let's start with the playoff because it sets the context for everything else. We've got 4 playoff games this week. Oregon versus James Madison, Ole Miss versus Tulane, Texas A&M versus Miami, and Alabama versus Oklahoma. Later this week, we'll drop Jimmy's Whiners and Losers, where we'll pick the losers, so stay tuned for that on Thursday. There are some fascinating storylines baked into these games. Let's start with Alabama-Oklahoma. With the Michigan job open, Kalen DeBoer's name keeps popping up. My opinion, DeBoer stays at Alabama. But if that turns into an ugly loss at Oklahoma, that's back-to-back 4-loss seasons, something that never happened once Nick Saban got rolling. And in Tuscaloosa, the natives get restless fast. Ole Miss Tulane is interesting for a different reason. Ole Miss should advance, but it's the first real postseason test without their polarizing former coach, Lane Kiffin, or Kiffy for those of you following the Jimmy storylines. And it's also Pete Golding's first shot as a head coach. He's a true ball coach. We'll see how that goes. Texas A&M and Miami doesn't have carousel drama, but it's going to be a great football game in College Station. And Oregon, James Madison? Oregon should advance. But if you're not following James Madison's social media team, you're missing out. Absolute gold. Here's the bottom line. Playoff weeks refocus the sport. Coaches are locked in. Fans and alumni are patient. Agents are locked in, ready to move quickly on extensions and raises. And yes, there are some agents already pulling strings behind the scenes. Being a great agent is a lot like being a great offensive coordinator. The good ones are calling the next play. The great ones are setting up plays 3 or 4 snaps ahead. Guess where Jimmy resides? Very few real decisions get finalized while playoff games are being played. That's not how this works. What everyone saw this week was familiar. When a job like Michigan opens, history repeats itself. The same names, the same conversations, and more confidence with every retweet. The names we covered in our emergency edition haven't changed much, except one. Arizona State's Kenny Dillingham is now getting real traction. But here's the bigger challenge around Michigan. Who's actually in charge? Ward Manuel's seat is hotter than Jimmy's offset smoker, and the smoke coming out of Ann Arbor right now isn't that sweet post oak and hickory that Jimmy prefers. Coaches crave certainty. Alignment from the AD, the administration, and the Board of Regents matters. If that alignment isn't crystal clear, it can scare off top candidates. Michigan is still a top 10 job, but there's real house cleaning needed. And the next coach will want a fresh slate and not Harbaugh's fingerprints on everything. My Michigan friends won't love that, but Jimmy talks to a lot of coaches, and you can take this to the bank. In weeks like this, the loudest narratives are often the least informed because experience and inside knowledge don't perform as well on timelines as certainty does. From an agent's perspective, this is where restraint matters most. Good agents don't chase timelines. They don't interrupt playoff runs, and they don't confuse being mentioned with being pursued, unless that mention conveniently turns into a raise and an extension. For those of you who followed Jimmy for a while, you probably remember the Auburn head fakes. 3 years ago, everyone was convinced Lane Kiffin was taking the Auburn job after Brian Hartson was sent packing, barely a season and a half after replacing Gus Malzahn and his $21 million buyout. That buyout helped fund the down payment on Buyout Island, by the way. Instead, Kiffy got a massive raise and extension at Ole Miss. Hugh Freeze landed at Auburn, and Jamie Chadwell moved from Coastal to Liberty, all of whom are Jimmy's clients. Fast forward to Freeze's buyout this year, and Buyout Island is now mortgage-free. Leverage isn't created by noise, it's created by timing and by knowing when not to move. Sometimes the smartest thing in the room is patience. There's another part of this we don't talk about enough. Behind every headline is a coach preparing a team, a family living with uncertainty, and a staff carrying real weight. How do you lead players you care deeply about while wondering where you're going to be moving your family next year? What that means for schools, kids, spouses, and staff. My friend Jeff Farrington, longtime head coach, now retired at North Greenville, used to say, it's a heck of a way to make a living depending on 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. But Jeff did it the right way for 40 years. He impacted countless young men who were better husbands, fathers, and leaders because of him. For every coach making $10 million a year, there are thousands, like Jeff, doing this to make a difference. Don't forget that. There will be plenty of noise this week. Take it with a grain of salt. Playoff results change leverage. Elimination opens doors. And somewhere, an agent may be pulling strings. Hypothetically, of course. This week will be interesting. The playoff determines champions, but it also quietly resets leverage across college football. This was a week full of noise. The next phase will be quieter and far more meaningful. We'll keep watching the process, not the panic. That's Agent Confidential, the pre-playoff wrap. And remember, if you're not winning, you're whining. Air Sexton is wheels up for, well, we can't say. Throttle says we're already late. Get me out of here.